administration by ignoring a correctly prepared report, because we haven't seen the report. We don't know the mechanics behind these decisions. We haven't found out yet. We turned a wonderful opportunity to pressurize the Libyan government to peacefully adopt a constitution and institute elections, which certainly by June of last year they were prepared to do. Because Gaddafi didn't really run Libya any longer. It was a group of people around him. He was quite an old man at this time. And his son Saif and his cousin, who was a spokesman for the Libyan government, if you go back and look at the press reels, Musa Ibrahim, these people had lots, and others had the capability to get the deal done, to a transition to elections, and they were begging to put elections immediately because they knew they would do better than we thought they would. And you will see as history unravels. Now, people say that the reason the militias will not disband is because the government is infiltrated by Gaddafi supporters. What does this mean, infiltrated by Gaddafi supporters? Is our government infiltrated by Republicans or Democrats? People who have a certain political point of view are not infiltrators. Libya was not a country of thugs. There were thuggish elements, but if you go through the Amnesty International reports, the country had a 10% growth rate. But I get beyond the point here. We turn this wonderful opportunity for a peaceful transition for a country such as Libya after creating a ceasefire line, according to UN 1973, at Benghazi, cordon it off and put a stop to the conflict. But instead, Hillary Clinton said that Gaddafi should stop killing his own people because we're much better at it than he is. He should just move aside and let us get to work. Of course, I'm speaking cynically here. And that in order for us to have talks with Gaddafi, he has to go. And of course, you can't talk to somebody who's gone. Now, those who've watched my other presentations know I've made these points, but I have new material here for you. Now, in the case of Chris Stevens' death and so forth, for God's sake, the Al-Qaeda flag was hoisted over the court in Benghazi months before Chris was killed. Now, what is this Al-Qaeda flag? It is a flag in the Islamic Emirate, a flag that represents a dream of a single Islamic state spanning from the shores of the Atlantic in Morocco and the Sahara, going all the way down to Indonesia and up into Central Asia. And if you look at the history of the Golden Age of Islam, they were very enlightened rulers. Harun al-Rashid at the time of Sinbad, around 800 AD, where they had gaslit street lamps, the highest science in the world in Baghdad. And now we allowed their libraries and all their manuscripts to burn as we guarded their oil embassies. Or Suleiman the Magnificent of the Ottoman Empire. So the fundamental impulse to restore Islam's greatness is not one that involves necessarily murder. So I just want to make a point of the flag of the Islamic Emirate. But nonetheless, an Al-Qaeda flag being hoisted over the source of the revolution once Gaddafi was killed, it should be an indicator of who it was that we armed, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, a group of religious extremists who fought in Afghanistan alongside Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and his affiliates, who fought in Iraq against the United States, who fought in the Balkans. This cynical and sinister alliance with Saudi Wahhabism and Qatari right-wing extremism is extremely disturbing. The sinister and cynical alliance of the United States with these elements and NATO. The largest weapon sales in United States history, about $80 billion worth, occurred in the first 2 years of Obama's presidency to the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has the worst record of any country in the world on women's rights. Saudi Arabia encouraged the right-wing elements in Libya, the Salafists, to destroy their archaeological heritage. I would tell you that the easiest job in the world that you could have would be to be the head of antiquities and archaeology at Riyadh University, because everything is as a matter of state policy okay to just simply destroy. And Tariq Ramadan has an interesting piece on Press TV about getting these people to stop desecrating historical sites. So we are now forging an alliance with this ultra-conservative Sunni imperial war machine that is driving Iraq into an alliance with Syria and Iran, which right now all three, Assad, is the Alawites are Sunni, and Syria, Iran, and Iraq are both Sunni, Shia majority countries. So all three of these power structures are Shia, and they're going to be lining up against the Gulf states. Now, Turkey is also Sunni, and Turkey is really a part of what we call BRIC: Brazil, Russia, India, China, because the real BRIC is the E7, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, Indonesia, Turkey, and Mexico. And in fact, you'll find that a lot of the investment groups have cut BRIC out and have just focused on Turkey, Indonesia, and Mexico this year. Now, Erdogan is a right-wing religious extremist prime minister in Turkey. And he has thrown his lot in with these sinister forces. And it turns out that Turkey had a lot of troops on the ground, which is in violation of this UN Resolution 1973 that we drafted, but we encouraged the Turks to send their special forces in, along with over 1,000 Qatari troops, all the time denying there were any boots on the ground. And our poor quality media never bothered to really shine much light on this. But I do post in the references a 200-page long document that you can download that I have created of New York Times articles and so forth that leak out each and every one of the disturbing contradictions to the official party line. So Prime Minister Erdogan has thrown over 100 leading military officers in Turkey into prison with sentences of 16 to 25 years, claiming they were plotting a coup. And furnishing CDs and documents stating they planned a coup around 2003. But one of my coworkers is a Turkish physicist, although she works in different capacity for us, and she knows about this because she is a secular Turk, a follower of the modern Turkey's founder Kemal Atatürk. And the role of the military in Turkey is that if Turkey does get swept up by religious forces that try to violate having a division between church and state, it's the military's duty to intervene. So obviously when you get a conservative religious extremist prime minister, the first thing he wants to do is smash and hammer this group. It turns out that these documents that they claim were conspiratorial documents had graphs in them that couldn't have been made before 2005, 2 years after the alleged coup, had fonts in them that weren't even invented until 2007. So the material is fraudulent. And in theory, plotting a coup, according to the Turkish constitution, meaning being prepared to intervene against a religious takeover of the government, would actually be legal, especially if it wasn't acted on. It's Plan X. Not only were these officers thrown in prison, but they were stripped of their patrimony. They lost custody of their children, which has never occurred in the history of Turkey. It is such a bizarre concept. They were stripped of the rights to their own children. And this is a man that we're in bed with. Additionally, of the 4 we have admitted were killed in the attack in Benghazi, because there are rumors that more Americans were killed, 2 of these diplomats were Navy SEALs. The Libyans we have put in power were shocked by how many CIA agents scuttled out of their holes in Benghazi, as the airport in Benghazi was clogged with American CIA agents and contractors trying to get out of town after this amazingly powerful assault of 150 trained, effectively right-wing religious commandos that not only took out the embassy, but went after the safe houses. When will we Westerners put in power wise and peaceful rulers, like Ashok or Suleiman or Winston Churchill? Churchill was horrified at small countries being liberated by modern, grim-faced iron armies of Italy, Germany, Japan, and the Soviet Union. I read every word he has written on World War II, every speech he has uttered, and I'm nearly certain he would view this similarly to the fate of King Zog of Albania, who was liberated from the misery of independent existence by Mussolini or the people of the Czechoslovak Republic, or the ancient kingdom of Abyssinia. You should listen to his speech, A Hush Over Europe, and see whether Mr. David Cameron, who went on Time, the cover of Time, and said, I'm David Cameron and I love Winston Churchill. And I'm not going to call David Cameron names, but I would very much be impelled to do so. Who has suffered in Libya? Women's rights have suffered. Libya had full equal rights for women. Blacks' rights have suffered. Blacks who were massively lynched in false rumors, probably spread by our own intelligence services. Certainly our press encouraged completely unsubstantiated claims. I watched every article come out painfully day after day. Anything said against Gaddafi was gleefully reprinted. Anything said to question him was squelched. But they did leak out. 100 articles came out. 90 of them were very loosely researched, all from 2 or 3 sources, all supporting the invasion. We've been fooled again and again and again. How many times can we be fooled? In Vietnam, we were fooled. In Iraq, we were fooled. Afghanistan is a complicated situation, but anybody could have predicted this. I worked with 2 Pakistani research engineers, and they laughed at the idea of the U.S. thinking they could occupy Afghanistan. No one has ever occupied Afghanistan except one Sikh king once, who was able to rule it peacefully in the 1500s because of his justice and wisdom. And not only blacks and women's and religious minorities' rights, the Sufis, but history itself is under attack in Libya. We have armed people who are burning historical sites. The Saudis are pressuring them to destroy Sufi shrines. Libraries of ancient Islamic and Arabic documents have been deliberately burned. And we are writing a history of our intervention, which is false. So history is under attack in Libya. I wrote and recorded many pieces in the spring and summer of last year about the false media narratives. And now the neocon Republicans themselves talk of a White House narrative. The precise words that I used a year and a half ago, this White House narrative. But they heartily cheered for this false story. And the White House narrative that they're attacking is simply political manipulation. There's no difference between the Republican and Obama administration positions on Libya. Obama got caught with this terrible incident, and now it's being made hay with. Now, there is an issue of competency here, certainly. Now, when I attack the neocons, I do deeply respect true small government conservative Republicans in honor of my meticulous grandfather, who believed in the Constitution and hard money and minding our own business, and was not taken seriously by my own liberal father and uncles and aunts. Yet now a nation hearkens to that precise call under the banner of Ron Paul. I wish my grandfather could have seen Ron Paul, but I don't think he would have liked to see what's happened to our country in the last 30 years. The people we installed in Libya now are attacking the strongest resistant point in Libya to the overthrow of their previous government, the Warfala capital of Beni Walid. And there is evidence, though not yet confirmed, that chemical weapons are being used on them. These are our people we put in power, and they apparently are using chemical weapons, and some civilians have come in with trembling nerves and odd-looking scars and burns to the hospital in Beni Walid. The city is under siege, so the hospital struggling mightily. These people have courage. They are facing 10 to 100 times the military forces, and they are not giving up. The Warfala tribe, with Beni Walid being their capital, is 1/6 of all Libyans. Libyans today that I've debated with claim that tribal allegiances are not the primary factor any longer, but the rape and pillage of Beni Walid, its suppression, and the going after the people and punishing them collectively for supporting the previous government will outrage many Warfala, who may indeed have not considered tribe their primary allegiance, but it will certainly boil their blood now. Many of these people would have preferred to, regardless of the history behind it, to try to work to bring Libya out of its ashes into a brighter future. But this attack on Beni Walid could easily drive people to greater division. I wish all Libyans, regardless of their attitude towards the NATO invasion, for make no mistake, this was not a civil war. It was an insurrection that was exploited to annihilate Libya's defenses and install a pro-Western state in its place. Obama's wretched continuation of murder and plunder of Arabs and Muslims and their lands will no doubt be even worse under Romney. After destabilizing, assassinating, and funding right-wing death squads in nascent democracies in Iran, the Congo, Chile, Guatemala,